Welcome back everyone. In the first video lecture, we deal with the basic definitions which are related to the motion. First one was position, then displacement, distance, velocity. Now, in this video, we are going to deal with the remaining or the rest of the definitions which are very useful for the analysis of motion. So next definition is distance. So distance, the total path covered by any particle during motion is called as distance. Is called as the distance. The path covered by particle, or we can say body, during motion. The path covered by the particle during motion is called as distance. Distance is scalar quantity. It means that it has only magnitude. So guys, please listen carefully. Distance is scalar quantity and it has only magnitude, and that magnitude is measured in meter per second or kilometer per distance. It is measured in meter or in kilometer. Okay, so there is a little bit difference between the distance and the displacement. What is displacement? Displacement is the difference between final position and initial position. It is vector quantity. It has magnitude as well as direction. But in case of distance, it is the total path covered or traced by the particle during motion. It is scalar quantity. It is also measured in meter or kilometer. Okay. Now next definition, which is speed. So there is again difference between the speed and the velocity. So first of all, please understand what is speed. The rate of change of distance with respect to time is known as speed, or change in distance with respect to time. We can also define it as change in distance with respect to time is speed. It is scalar quantity. It is measured in kilometer per hour or meter per second. Speed is related to distance while velocity is related to displacement. As the displacement is vector quantity, hence velocity is vector quantity. Now moving to distance. Distance is scalar quantity, hence the change in distance with respect to time is speed is again scalar quantity. It has only magnitude. Okay. Then unit of measurement. This speed is measured in kilometer per hour or meter per second. Now, next definition, acceleration. Which is denoted by small a, acceleration. The change in velocity with respect to time. Change in velocity with respect to time is known as acceleration. Acceleration is again vector quantity. It has magnitude as well as direction. Acceleration is vector quantity. It means that it has magnitude as well as direction. Acceleration is mathematically expressed as change in velocity with respect to time. Velocity is measured in meter per second, while again time is measured in second. So its unit of measurement becomes meter per second square. So this is nothing but acceleration. Acceleration is vector quantity because it is nothing but change in velocity with respect to time. Change in velocity with respect to time. Acceleration is mathematically expressed as change in velocity with respect to time. That is nothing but acceleration. Velocity is measured in meter per second, when time is measured in second. So its unit of measurement becomes meter per second. So while dealing with the problems associated with rectilinear motion, we came across different vector quantities. So whenever there is vector quantity, we need to assign proper sign convention for them. So whenever we came across, guys, please listen carefully, whenever we came across these vector quantities, we need to assign proper sign conventions for them. Now we are going to study the sign conventions which are associated with the different basic vector quantities. Sign conventions. So in the first part, we are going to assign the signs for velocity, displacement, in the first part, we are going to assign the sign for the velocity and displacement. As we know that these two are the vector quantities. We have we know that it has magnitude and direction. So while solving the problems of rectilinear motion, we have to assign proper sign. Now, how to assign proper sign? Let's see. The initial direction of motion. The initial direction of motion is taken as, or is considered, as positive. If a body starts from its original position and moving towards the left hand, then velocity in the left hand direction is taken as positive, while displacement towards left direction is also taken as positive. Okay, so the initial direction of motion is very important. So you need to understand initial direction of motion, and according to that you are going to assign positive or negative sign for the velocity and displacement. Now, if a particle is at position A, now particle starts motion and move to point B. Particle is initially located at A and starts motion, and finally at the end of motion it has been located at point B. Now the velocity towards left is taken, velocity towards right is taken as positive, while displacement towards right direction is also taken as positive, because if you observe carefully, body is moving from position A to position B. It means that body is moved towards right direction. So the vector quantities like displacement and velocity towards right direction are taken as positive. Here displacement is considered positive, while velocity displacement is also considered as positive. Velocity and displacement both towards right direction are taken as positive. So this is the sign convention rule for the velocity and displacement. The initial direction, you should understand initial direction, and according to that you have to assign proper sign. If the initial direction of motion is towards right, then velocity and displacement towards right is taken as positive. If displacement happens towards left direction, it means that initial direction of motion is towards left, then velocity towards left direction is positive, displacement towards left direction is also positive. If a particle is freely suspended from the top of the building, it means that the particle now is moving from top of the position towards the ground. So initial direction of motion is towards earth, so or in downward direction. So displacement in downward direction is positive, while velocity in downward direction is also positive. So this is the sign convention rule for the velocity as well as displacement. Then there is one more quantity, vector quantity, which is acceleration. So we have different rule for the acceleration. Acceleration is again vector quantity, so we need to assign proper sign for acceleration while solving or dealing with the problems of rectilinear or curvilinear motion, whatever it is. So the rule is, if velocity increases in the direction of motion, acceleration is positive. If velocity increases in the direction of motion, acceleration positive. If velocity decreases in the direction of motion, then acceleration is negative acceleration. So this is the sign convention rule for the acceleration. What is like how to assign signs for the acceleration? So the rule is here: if velocity increases in the direction of motion, it means that body accelerates, then such acceleration is considered as positive acceleration. If velocity decreases in the direction of motion, then such acceleration is negative acceleration. Positive acceleration is simply known as acceleration, while negative acceleration is known as deceleration. Okay, so you need to understand these two concepts again. Negative acceleration is simply known as acceleration. If in the problem they stated that body accelerates, it means that there is positive acceleration. If in the problem they say the acceleration is negative acceleration, then such acceleration is called as deceleration. And this deceleration is also known as retardation. So in the problem statement, if they stated that the body retarded at the rate of 5 meter per second square, it means that there is negative acceleration. It means that there is negative acceleration. So these are the simple things that we need to remember while solving the problem. Okay, so positive acceleration is simply known as acceleration, while negative acceleration is also known as deacceleration or retardation. Okay, in the problem they may say that there is deacceleration, it means that acceleration is negative. In the problem they may say that there is retardation, it means that there is negative acceleration. The meaning remains same. Okay, so these are the things related or associated with the acceleration. Now we will take an example. So here I am going to draw two cases. So in the first case, ball is freely suspended from this position. Such a position, that position is marked as A. So initial position of the ball is A. Now this ball is freely dropped from point A. Now ball is moving towards the ground. Initial velocity is 0 meter per second. While ball reaches to the ground, it attains some velocity. So in this case, initial direction of motion is in downward direction. So velocity and displacement in downward direction are positive. Velocity and displacement in downward direction are taken as positive. If you observe carefully, the initial velocity when body starts moving in downward direction, its velocity is 0 meter per second, because body is dropped from this point. Now body is moving and attaining velocity, and it strikes to the ground after some time and attaining some velocity. Okay, so initial velocity is 0 meter per second, and while it strikes to the ground, it attains some velocity. Say initial velocity is 0 meter per second, and when it strikes to the ground, it has velocity say 10 meter per second. It means that the velocity has been increased from initial position to final position. So if velocity increases in the direction of motion, acceleration is considered as positive acceleration. Acceleration is considered as positive acceleration. Velocity in downward direction, positive. Displacement in downward direction, positive. Then acceleration is also taken as positive, because here the velocity increases in the direction of motion, because initially velocity is 0 meter per second. Okay, and when it strikes, when the ball strikes to the ground, it attains some velocity, say 10 meter per second. It means that it is observed that velocity is increased in the direction of motion, hence it is taken as positive. Now here again ball is at the ground level. Now this ball is thrown in vertically upward direction with initial velocity say 10 meter per second. With initial velocity say 10 meter per second. So it attains or it travels some distance, and now ball is located at position B. Now initial ball is thrown vertically upward direction with 10 meter per second. Now it attains some velocity, now it attains some height, and at the point its velocity becomes 0. So at the end of motion its velocity is 0 meter per second, and again ball is going to drop and move in downward direction. So we don't have to consider that motion. So just consider motion of ball from position A to position B. It has been earlier thrown with velocity of 10 meter per second. It covers distance and finally its velocity becomes 0 meter per second. So if you observe carefully, initial direction of motion is upward. So velocity and displacement in upward direction taken as positive. Then what about acceleration? If you observe carefully, velocity decreases in the direction of motion. Velocity decreases in the direction of motion. Then such acceleration is negative acceleration. In this case, we have to consider acceleration as negative acceleration. So hope guys, all of you understand about the proper sign convention for the velocity, displacement and acceleration. Thank you.